Johnny woke up to the gentle sound of waves breaking on the nearby river. He stretched, trying to dispel the frustration that had accompanied him in recent days due to the lack of fish. As he looked at the river, he decided it was time to change his strategy. Maybe a new fishing spot could bring better results. He gathered his fishing gear, checking the rod, the reel, and the baits. He carefully placed everything in his backpack along with some extra hooks. Determined, he set off toward the forest, remembering a shortcut he had heard about. The walk through the forest was both comforting and challenging. The bird songs and the gentle breeze made Johnny feel connected to nature. The dense vegetation and the scent of moist earth lifted his spirits, but the lack of well-defined trails made progress slow. After an hour of walking, he reached a clearing. He paused for a moment, listening carefully to the sound of a river in the distance. Hope rekindled in his chest, and he followed the sound. As he approached, he noticed something unusual near a group of rocks. Approaching cautiously, Johnny realized it was a bear. His heart raced, and he instinctively tried to appear larger, stretching his arms and speaking calmly. "Hey girl, it's okay. I'm just passing by. I won't hurt you." But then he saw the reason the bear was still. There was a wound on her hind leg. Johnny felt a wave of compassion. He knew he couldn't leave her like that. "Calm down, I'm going to help you," he murmured, more to himself than to the animal. He searched his backpack for something he could use. He found a clean cloth and a sturdy branch. Approaching slowly, he used the branch to gently remove objects stuck in the wound, while speaking calmly to keep the bear at ease. The bear growled, but didn't move much. Johnny managed to clean the wound, although he knew it was only a temporary solution. "I promise he'll come back with help," he said, looking into the animal's eyes. The bear seemed to understand somehow, or at least he hoped so. With a heavy heart, Johnny moved away, knowing he had to find help quickly. The next day, Johnny woke up with the first ray of sun shining through his cabin window. The sound of the river continued in the background, but his mind was focused on one thing: finding the bear cub. He quickly prepared, grabbing a sturdy rope and a fishing net, as well as some cereal bars in case he needed extra energy. Johnny retraced his steps back to the clearing where he had found the bear the previous day. The vegetation seemed denser this time, as if the forest was aware of his mission. Every step was accompanied by the bird songs and the rustling of leaves under his feet. When he reached the clearing, the bear was no longer there. Johnny's heart raced. Where could she be, he thought. He followed the sound of the river, hoping maternal instinct had led her close to the water. After a few minutes, Johnny heard a distant sound, different from the gentle murmur of the river. He quickened his pace and upon reaching the river, saw a scene that made his blood run cold. A bear cub struggling against the current, being swept away by the fast waters. "Hold on, little one," shouted Johnny, knowing the cub wouldn't understand his words. Quickly, he tied one end of the rope to a sturdy tree and secured the other end to his waist. With the fishing net in hand, he entered the water, feeling the current's strength pushing against his legs. The struggle against the current seemed endless, but Johnny finally reached the cub. With a quick and precise movement, he cast the fishing net over the small bear, pulling it towards him. The current almost carried them away, but Johnny used all his strength to return to the shore, dragging the cub with him. Once on solid ground, Johnny noticed the cub wasn't breathing. His heart tightened, and he immediately began performing CPR, gently pressing the bear's small chest and blowing air into its snout. "Come on, little one. You can do it," he said between breaths. After a few seconds that felt like hours, the cub coughed and began breathing again. Johnny felt a wave of relief and joy. "You're going to be fine," he murmured, stroking the cub. He knew he needed to find the cub's mother quickly. With the cub in his arms, Johnny began walking back to the clearing where he had found the bear. He felt exhausted but determined. When he arrived, he found the mother bear, who had returned to her original spot. She lifted her head, seeing Johnny approach with her cub. "Calm down, friend." "Hess, okay," Johnny said, placing the cub on the ground. The mother bear crawled over to the cub, licking and checking its condition. Johnny watched, feeling a deep connection with the animals. He knew professional help was needed to ensure the bear's complete recovery. He took out his phone and called the forest rangers, explaining the situation. They promised to send a team as quickly as possible. While he waited, Johnny stayed by the bear's side, feeling a deep sense of responsibility and care. The forest around seemed more alive, as if acknowledging Johnny's effort to protect its inhabitants. The forest rangers arrived quickly, bringing medical equipment and special cages to transport the bears. "Thank you for coming so fast," Johnny said, relieved to see the green uniforms of the rangers. "It's part of our job," replied one of the rangers, a burly man with a friendly smile. "Now, let's see what we can do for these guys." The forest rangers examined the mother bear and the cub, administering first aid and preparing them for transport. Johnny watched closely, feeling a mix of relief and apprehension. The mother bear, though frightened, seemed to understand they were there to help. "Will she be okay?" Johnny asked, his voice laden with concern. "The wound is serious, but with proper care, she should recover," said the ranger, a tall woman with determined eyes. "Well, take them to the nearest wildlife hospital." The forest rangers carefully placed the bears in cages and loaded them into the vehicles. Johnny insisted on accompanying the rangers to the hospital, not wanting to leave the bears alone. During the trip, he thought about the connection he felt with those animals. Something deep had changed within him. At the wildlife hospital, a team of veterinarians was ready to receive the bears. They quickly took the mother bear to surgery while examining the cub. Johnny waited nervously in the waiting room, his hands trembling slightly. Hours passed until one of the veterinarians came to see him. The surgery was successful. "We managed to clean and suture the wound. Now, she needs rest and care to recover fully," explained the veterinarian. "As for the cub, he's fine, just a little traumatized. They both will stay here for a while until they're ready to return to the wild." Johnny felt a wave of relief. "Can I see them?" he asked. "Of course, but keep calm. They are still very fragile," replied the veterinarian, guiding Johnny to the recovery area. Seeing the mother bear lying down, breathing softly, with the cub by her side, Johnny felt tears in his eyes. He approached slowly, whispering words of encouragement. "You are strong. You'll get through this," he said, his voice choked. He stayed there for a while, watching the bears rest. In the following days, Johnny visited the hospital daily, monitoring the bears' recovery. He developed an even deeper bond with them, feeling responsible for their survival. Finally, the day of release arrived. The bears, now healthy and strong, were ready to return to the forest. Johnny accompanied them to the release site, watching with a mix of sadness and joy as they returned to their natural habitat. As he watched the mother bear and the cub move away, Johnny felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He decided he would get more involved in conservation initiatives, dedicating himself to protecting wildlife. He frequently returned to the forest, hoping to encounter the bears again. Each visit was a reminder of the special bond he had formed and the importance of protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. Months had passed since Johnny had helped the mother bear and her cub recover and return to the forest. His life had changed drastically since then. He became an active advocate for wildlife conservation, participating in campaigns and lectures to raise awareness about the importance of protecting animals and their habitats. One late afternoon, during one of his regular visits to the forest, Johnny heard voices that didn't belong to nature. He became alert and discreetly followed the sound until he spotted a group of armed poachers. They were near a trap where the mother bear and her cub were playing unsuspectingly. Johnny's heart raced. He knew he had to act quickly but carefully. He took out his phone and immediately called the forest rangers, informing them of his location and the situation. While waiting for help, he tried to think of a way to delay the poachers. With a courage he didn't know he possessed, Johnny approached the poachers, shouting to get their attention. "Hey, what are you doing here? This is a protected area." The poachers turned, surprised, and one of them, a man with cold eyes, pointed a gun at Johnny. "Get out of here if you don't want to get hurt," the man threatened. Johnny raised his hands, trying to appear less threatening. "I just want to protect these animals. They did nothing wrong. You don't need to do this." One of the poachers, seemingly more nervous, looked at the leader. "Maybe we should listen to this guy. He might have called the forest rangers." "We're not leaving without our trophies," the leader retorted firmly. At that moment, the mother bear noticed the danger and tried to protect her cub, growling threateningly. Johnny knew he had to buy time until help arrived. "Look, we can resolve this without violence," Johnny continued. "You can leave now, and no one gets hurt. We just want these animals to be safe." Before the poachers could respond, a shot echoed through the forest. Johnny felt a sharp pain in his shoulder and fell to the ground, screaming in pain. The mother bear charged in defense, but was hit by another shot, falling beside her cub, who let out a high-pitched whimper. At that moment, the forest rangers arrived on the scene, weapons drawn. "Drop your weapons and lie on the ground," they shouted. The poachers, realizing they were surrounded, threw down their weapons and surrendered. The rangers quickly handcuffed the men and called a veterinarian to treat the injured. Johnny, fighting against the pain, crawled to the mother bear, feeling tears of helplessness stream down his face. The cub was beside her, making sounds of lament and confusion. The veterinarian arrived and began treating Johnny and the bear simultaneously. "It's going to be okay," the veterinarian said, trying to calm Johnny. "She will need surgery, but I think we can save her." While Johnny was being treated, he looked at the cub next to his mother. He felt deep sadness and a renewed determination. He knew that although they had won a battle, the war to protect these animals was far from over. In time, the mother bear survived, but was left with scars that would tell her story. Johnny recovered from his injury, but the experience left deep marks on his heart. He continued to fight for wildlife conservation, more determined than ever to protect those who couldn't protect themselves.